All right, here we go. This is Unit 6, the last unit for our class. It focuses on creating and communicating, and you'll be answering these questions. What are the connections between reading and writing? What are ethical ways to remix the work of others? And that question really deals with plagiarism, which is a very hard thing to teach young children. So we're going to be talking about some ways or thinking about some ways to do that effectively. And what does it mean, even plagiarism, in today's classrooms and with the internet and making it so easy for people to, quote, borrow work from other people? So we'll explore those issues in this unit. You'll be able to explain those connections between reading and writing, identify some ways of giving attribution to the work of another, describing ways digital literacy promotes writing and sharing. So that's our focus. So the main kind of gist of this unit, it's called creating because creating can really deal with all the ways that we create something, not just writing, although in the elementary classroom, oftentimes there is that focus on writing. But creating is any process that we use to create something such as a script for a podcast or a video of a science fair project. And that process is similar, involves using our literacy skills while also integrating creativity and uniqueness and our own personal style. And so in this unit, we'll be focusing on ways that we can help students to do those things. I'm going to ask you to choose from the list here of things to view for this unit. There's no summary activity in this unit. This is all good stuff, and I hope that you'll find it useful, but you're this is kind of on the honor system here, view what you can, but I will strongly encourage you to view the multidisciplinary performance task slide presentation, which comes from the Kansas State Department of Education, especially if you're not familiar with the multidisciplinary performance task assessment that we now use in Kansas. So if you haven't given that assessment, if you haven't seen it, if you don't know very much about it, I strongly encourage you to view that presentation because it will be a great chance for you to get some background information before you do the activity that's in this unit. And that is this activity. So I'm going to take you through the steps of that assessment as if you were following the same process as the students in Kansas follow. And even though you may not teach this to your students, even though you may eventually teach somewhere outside of Kansas, it's a good process to follow anyway for creating. So that's, I guess I'll say, one of the positives about this assessment. You may know of some concerns that teachers have, but I will say it is an authentic assessment in that it takes students through the research process in a kind of condensed way. And so that's what I'm going to ask you to do. So I'll present you with some resources, both things to read and things to view. I'll ask you to make notes of what you think is important from those resources. And once you submit those notes, and that's part 1, that's due June 30th, and you'll see what I'm going to suggest for you to use as a format for those notes. Once you submit those, then I'll send you the prompt for what you're going to write, and you'll either write a narrative, an informational, or a persuasive text based on what you read and what you viewed. And you won't know which type of text that's going to be until I send you the prompt. And I have those prompts already, and I just randomly, whoever submits and sends me a little email saying you're ready for your prompt, then I'll send you whatever's next on the list. So it's just kind of, I just go down the list randomly. I don't try to make sure there's a certain number of each type. Whoever comes next gets the next prompt. So it could be narrative, could be informational, could be persuasive. But you'll need to send me, once you submit part 1, then you just send me a quick email and let me know that you're ready, and I'll be watching and I'll send you that prompt right away. I'm just going to ask you to write a paragraph or two towards that type of text, just so you kind of get the feel of what students are being asked to do. So part 2 your either narrative, informational, or persuasive text, depending on your prompt. That part's due on July 2nd. All right, part 4 of the inquiry project. So by June 26th, you submitted your part 3. So basically your research paper part of the inquiry project. Now for part 4, I'm asking you to take the content in that paper and make it into a presentation that you could share with colleagues. And that or parents, even if it's appropriate. And that presentation is created with some kind of digital tool, and you can read the instructions for that. So no extra content is needed. You do not have to include your list of resources, but I do want you to give credit for any images that you use. So to give credit for those images, when you borrow an image, say if you go to Google Images, capture the URL or the web link for where that image comes from and include that in your project. So that's how I want you to give credit for those images. So digital presentation of the same content that's in your paper. You're going to post that in the discussion board and you're going to submit it into Canvas to the assignment link. If you create a web tool like a wiki or a simple website using Weebly or Wix, or maybe a Glog or a Prezi, those are all web-based presentation tools. If you use one of those, which I hope you will, because those are tools that lots of students are using, then you just submit the URL for where your project is. So make sure that you put the setting on public so I can see it. Submit the URL, that's all you have to send me. If you're creating a PowerPoint or a keynote or a brochure or a newsletter or something like that, then you'll send me the actual product that you create. Please note that if you're going to use PowerPoint or Keynote, given some special suggestions about what makes for quality presentations, and that's really limiting the amount of text that's on the slide. So a dozen words or less if you're using PowerPoint or Keynote, but in the note section, I want you to include your explanation. That's where you would, if you were giving a presentation, what kinds of things would you say about that slide? So both of those need to be included to earn the full credit for the digital presentation if you're using PowerPoint or Keynote. All right, so that's due June 30th. And then I've paired you up and I want you to go in and view your partner's presentation, and then I want you to give feedback to your partner. And so you'll see in the Part 5 assignment description, it specifies the type of feedback that I want you to give, and you'll submit that for your assignment, and then you'll email that directly to your partner so they can see what you have to say. I will say there is going to be a group of 3. And that gets a little bit tricky because it requires a little bit of extra feedback on the part of those people. So because of that, you may cut back a little bit, make your feedback a little bit shorter, but we have an odd number. So that's due July 2nd, and then that gets us to the end of our class. Thank you.